Right, I'm going to be doing the evaluation for our final unit, end of unit music video titled Falls In, created by Jack Martin, Dylan Barnes, and Morgan Mills. I'm just going to run through our video and I'm going to tell you scene by scene why we chose exactly that shot, why we chose that particular area, and why we did what we did throughout the production of this film. Pausing it off early. The reason we wanted to start with, well, I personally wanted to start with this shot because we all edited the same footage but in different ways. So, for instance, I edited it my way, Dylan edited it his way, and Jack edited it his way. The reason I edited it this way is because I wanted to start off with a calm, more neutral shot of Jack, who is the subject throughout this entirety of the music video, just having a cigarette. The reason why I wanted this is because it lures into that sort of, I wouldn't say a false sense of security, but it gives you that sort of calm and just sort of every normal day life sort of feel. Because as of right now, it's just a person having a cigarette. There's no real context to it. But then later on during the music video, you start to realize why he's having that cigarette, and you start to realize this is just part of his life spiraling out of control. In terms of this shot, the opening sort of shot lasts about 48 seconds, and for a music video, I realised this after I did a focus group, and I showed a collection of people I selected to watch my music video, and they said, I was with one of my teachers said to me that music videos are very, very quick, fast paced, almost like most of the time to the beat, like quick cuts averagely every 4 to 6 seconds. It should be a quick cut to something else, to something else, to something else, to keep the audience more captivated in what's going on. For more continual shots, the only problem with my music video, if I had to state I had an overall problem with it now that I've sat down and had this discussion with people, is that my music video falls more into the lines of a short film rather than a music video, for the actual scenes being too long. And now I realise that, I now know what I need to do in future reference to cut down each of the scenes and just make it more interesting. Carrying on. In terms of the actual footage itself, overall throughout the entirety of this film, music video, I was actually very, very happy with the actual quality of footage that we were producing. Like, for instance, I did like the panning of the room and how it kind of flows, because we used a DSLR gimbal to stabilize our camera rig, and the actual just flow of the actual camera going around the room and how it kind of encapsulates the room, sort of foreshadowing future events, or maybe just emphasizing how empty it is and how sort of because obviously with the black and white over the top of this footage, the effect I added on post, it sort of just gives you that sort of eerie feeling of people, something used to happen here but nothing is now. So that's the reason why I decided to use that sort of flowing shot, that sort of like almost free spirit kind of, you're observing something you shouldn't be kind of vibe. And transition into the next shot. From that last scene, another thing I wanted to do for this was probably another reason why it's very sort of it is very slow, because I've slowed every bit of footage down by 20%, so it's all running at 80% speed compared to normal. And the reason I did this was because I had a chat with a couple of friends, and they said emphasis in a music video is a very powerful thing. So I know after talking to a group saying that music videos should be quick, they should be snappy, it should be sharp. What I wanted to do with this is I wanted to have a lot. It was supposed to be like an emotional video, like a video that really like grips you, and so I thought slowing everything down would help sort of just emphasize the shots more, the facial expressions, the body movement, the way the camera moved, and just sort of actions like the slap and how Jack reacted to the slap and how he sort of went down, and just that slowness, and how Jack pushed Megan, who is playing the role of his wife in this music video, how he just pushed Megan, and the slow motion of her falling back into the kitchen counter. Just again, I just wanted to encapsulate this sort of like you're in the moment, the slow motion, trapped watching this moment happen. Now, for the next couple of scenes, it could be considered a montage or sort of like a quick sort of lapse about what happens, transpires. But what's going to happen for the next few scenes is you're going to see Jack's, or in this case James's, that's the character he plays, his life sort of spiral down because his wife has left him. She's took the kids, as the note explains, and he goes through this sort of depression and this sort of downward spiral of emotions. The way we encapsulate this, especially with at least I wanted to encapsulate it, was we focused on key points. So for instance, like we focused on the Gordon's gin bottle because we thought that was like very, very appropriate, considering his life sort of fall into a downward spiral sort of thing. This shot's just referring to what I was stating earlier. See, I threw on the intensive blur because again the whole point of this is he's drinking to forget, and I wanted to establish that first person view of you are drunk. You're looking at this. You're It's just a lot of emphasis. The whole point of this music was just really getting emphasis on everything. So foreshadowing back to the start of the music video, where it all makes sense now to why he was having the cigarette. Reason why I did the opacity sort of cut-ins throughout this entire as you can see, I've done the opacity cut-ins because again it's sort of repeating myself, but I'm just sort of driving the point home of I wanted you to see all this footage will be coming up in the music video, but I wanted the foreshadowing. I wanted to show that he's remembering. I wanted to show that there were good times in this relationship, but it's just gone sour, and I just wanted to show that the contrast between the good and the bad, literally on top of one another. So like the good being the dancing with Meg, and obviously Jack having a fight to forget sort of everything that's happened, but at the same time he can't forget. So it just shows the contrast between the two. Now, as the music starts to die down here, this is when we cut into the happier scenes, or should I say the more some would say flashback. I'd say I'd probably call it a flashback to happier times. And one thing that I didn't intently realise when I was in post editing this is that considering I wanted to emphasize a lot of this, and I wanted to show contrast between the good and the bad. I didn't when I was editing this part. I didn't realize as Megan closes the door, Jack falls over. Considering, in the scene, they were clearly like going into the bedroom to do whatever, and then it pans to Jack falling onto the bed alone. So even in post editing, when I didn't realize how good that actually worked together, I didn't realize until towards the end of editing this footage that I realized how well that worked, and it was completely unintentional, but I really liked how it worked. So then when I realized I did it, I timed it so as the Megan closes the door, it perfectly simulates when Jack falls over to show that sort of that change in shot, that sort of transition I wanted, that smooth sort of transition into this shot. Again, foreshadowing what I with the opacity shots I did earlier. If I had to do anything different, if I had to do any one of these shots differently besides the first shot where we were panning around the room, I'd probably cut that down significantly. But if I had to do the shot differently, it would be this one. The reason why this one is because, again, I feel like it drags too much. But the only problem with this shot is it looks compared to the rest of them, it looks sloppy. So, for instance, there's like a lag for when Jack actually comes into the shot, comes into frame, and then just sort of like when we had to deal with the gate whilst we were filming, so we had to kind of like move the shoulder rig round the actual gate itself, so it didn't look as smooth and as like kind of, because the whole purpose of us filming this is that we're not actually a physical entity there, we're kind of floating, like kind of it's just sort of hovering in this world. We're not supposed to actually be in it, not supposed to be a physical entity in it, and this shot ruins it kind of, because we obviously had to go round the gate. And it kind of, you can see how like the camera sort of, well, you'll see in a minute, how the camera shifts from left and then it goes to right again. So it kind of breaks the sort of the visual of, oh, okay, we're not actually a physical entity in this world, So that's the only thing I'd do differently if I had to reshoot this again. Now, the reason I've left this so late to mention it is because I wanted to wait for that transitional shot. If I could just go back to it. I wanted to go back to this transitional shot, and the reason why I wanted to go back to this transitional shot is because you've probably noticed throughout the entirety of this film, all of the bad I shouldn't say not bad times, but the present day times where Jack is alone is all in black and white. And then all of the memories / flashbacks / good times is all in colour, like vivid sort of. I put a sort of a sunset sort of filter onto the actual footage itself to give that warmer feeling, to give that more welcoming, more comforting feeling. The reason why I wanted that is because, again, I know I've repeated this a lot, but contrast. I wanted to show the difference between the good and the bad. Jack, the reason why I wanted to get rid of all colour in the present day sort of shots is because when someone is depressed, they don't really see the good. Day, well, not modern day, but current times. This shot, we wanted to get scale of, because I'll come to it at the end. But the reason why we wanted to get this particular shot, we filmed this at Galley Common, and the reason why we wanted to get this shot is to show scale of the bridge that we're filming on. the whole point of this video is that he gets so depressed that he jumps off because he can't, live without the person he loved, even though they fought a lot and it was very quite mentally abusive and physically abusive relationship, but they still loved one another. And this shot is weird for me because I didn't realize this until after finishing the video, that there was a barn door of the shoulder rig on the far right, and that I didn't realize, and that's my own stupid fault. I didn't realize completely. It just sort of because blended into sort of the black and the white, so I just completely did not see it. So, like I said, if I had to reshoot that, that would be gone because I didn't want to resize it, because if I resized it in post, then it would just look weird compared to the rest of it. And I thought if I, just zoomed in and got rid of it all, then it would sort of take away from me trying to get a scale of this bridge. So you'll notice throughout the entirety of this film, there's a lot of tracking shots and a lot of establishing shots, because we didn't really want anything else, because this is sort of just following, like I said, we weren't supposed to be like physically in like a part of this world. It was just sort of like, you're this entity sort of following the life of Jack. And the reason why we just wanted a bunch of establishing shots and a lot of tracking shots was because we felt like we didn't need a lot of complexity when it came to this, because a lot of the actual telling of the story would come from either the movements or the actions or the transitions and the flashbacks, so we didn't really need a lot of different angles, or we didn't really need a lot of different sort of camera shots, because we just felt like, the simplicity works for emphasis. And we thought if we overcomplicated it with all these different camera angles, for instance, I think we used about a total of about 5 different camera angles. We used like pans, and we used we used establishing shots, we used tracking shots, we used overhead, and on the gimbal with the Megan and Jack dancing scene, we used the gimbal's rotation to get that sort of, again, that tracking shot. But then we used 50 mils for like close-ups and things like that. So overall we didn't use like a lot of complicated shots. Like there weren't anything that was too complicated during the filming of this. But the reason why we had that was because we just didn't want to overcomplicate it. We just thought the story we have, along with the music, along with the shots that we have planned, it will work. It will drive home what we want the story to be. And especially with my particular edit, how I edited it, it's exactly how I wanted it to look. So, carrying on. Now, this bit is my favourite bit of the entire music video, and to be fair, it was a lot of people's favourite, because the whole point of this, and I'll keep playing it, sorry, the whole point of this is that it's his life is coming undone, it's unwinding, all the footage we just shot is being reversed. So the whole point of this entire thing was, I'll pause it there, the whole point of this entire thing was to make sure that you get the idea of, okay, while he's at the bridge, he's on the edge, and his life is sort of rewinding and sort of getting that feel of it. It's going backwards. It's coming undone. Everything that built up to this is getting ruined, or sort of say erased, because he is about to commit suicide. And I thought that was a very powerful sort of message. And when I did a focus group on my music video, and at the final product, I did ask them what was your favourite part of the music video, and most of the people stated that the footage was really, really good, and they loved the sort of pan backwards at the end of the film. So the whole rewind of his life, and just how it was all in reverse, and how it literally like all just did the exact same thing throughout the entire music video, became undone, and it was really good, and it was a really strong message, and really, really works in the case of like understanding what it meant. Now we're going to just go back quickly. So in fact, this shot, if I had to choose, obviously besides it all coming, like the sort of the montage of it all coming undone, besides that, if I had to choose a favourite shot, I'd probably choose this one because this one has subtlety. This one has subtle meaning. Because as you can see, he's obviously jumped and he's hit the floor. But the focus wasn't on his body, it was on his hand. Perfectly on his left hand with the ring. He's still wearing his wedding ring as he's obviously jumped to his death. And I think this has the most subtle power and meaning. I think it went over a lot of people's heads. And I think it went over a lot of people's sort of expectations of what it was. But so besides everything else, this was the most, I think, underlooked. I think most definitely the most underlooked shot of the entire music video. But I feel like it had a lot of power considering, like, if you look at the rest of the footage, like, this is, like, you know, it goes amiss because you look at all the rest of it and you clearly see clear, obvious meaning. Whereas this one, you kind of have to look and think, oh, why did he focus on the hand? And then you realise, oh, okay, well, that was the whole point. So, anyway, this was my evaluation of my end of unit music video